thank you so much for coming on a busy Monday night. Do appreciate anytime we offer these workshops. It's always nice to see parents that are coming to be interested in some of the things that we're talking about. So this is our series of our CAPS Academy for Parents workshop, and this is, I think, our fourth one this school year, maybe fourth or fifth one. But I'm really excited to introduce to you Mrs. Darcy DiCosmo. And Darcy is a speaker for the 7 Habits of Highly Effective Kids, the Covey Institute. So she's a principal at Cerritos Elementary School in Kyrene. She's been there for 7 years. And for the past 5 years, they have implemented the Leader in Me program, which is based on the principles of the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. So what she's going to talk about a little bit is the journey that Cerritos went through as a school, but more importantly, how you can use some of these ideas to help your kids develop some leadership skills, and how you can teach some of these concepts and ideas at home to maybe reduce conflicts and help with other behaviors that might come up at home. So I'm also proud to call Darcy a very dear friend of mine. So please welcome Darcy DiCosmo.
Okay, conflicts at home? I did not know there was a problem with that. I had no idea. Thank you, Diane, for introducing me. I really appreciate this opportunity, too. Again, my name is Darcy DiCosmo. I am the principal at Cerritos. Typically, I do the training of the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and I do the training for staff. That's the 7 Habits of Happy Kids. And so when Diane asked me if I would present, I tried to squeeze in about 24 hours worth of training into. She said you were here for about 4 or 5 hours tonight, so I'll make sure I got you out by 10. No. I really, what I'm touching on is I'm just going to give you a review about what the 7 habits are, a review about why our school brought it to our just to our school. And it's really, I'm not here to sell a program. I'm not here to even talk about if that's something that you would want to do at your school. What I'd like to do is just introduce you to the 7 habits. And as Diane was saying, is how can this be effective in your house? What could you start to do as a parent too? But first I want to give you all the background instead of just jumping into it. So let's take a look. I apologize, it's hard to read because I've had to get super cute with the fonts, and then of course didn't realize they'd be hard to read. So tonight's end in mind, second habit is beginning with the end in mind. Our end in mind is we're going to talk about leadership in children. What does it mean? What does leadership mean? And when we're talking about leadership, are we talking about asking kids to be CEOs and principals? Maybe that's not what they want to do. What does leadership mean when we talk about children? A snapshot of our story. I could go on and on about Cerritos and how we brought it to our school, but I just want to give you a snapshot of that. An overview of the 7 habits so you can have just a quick understanding about what those 7 habits are. How many people went through when you were in college or high school or you read the 7 habits? Yeah. Every parent that comes to our school says, oh, I remember, I did that, until we start talking about it. Or when their kids come home and say, Mom, you're not being proactive, then they think, oh, that's right. I do remember those habits, because when we took them, they didn't have as much meaning. And now we have brought them to a level with kids that they're meaningful. And it's bringing it back to parents as well, because many of us went through that training. So I think using it in the terms that we use it with kids, it's amazing what they can connect to. I want to talk a little bit about data passports, and the purpose of the data passports is to talk about goal setting and what goal setting can do with our kids. Talk about mission statements and how that can help you in your home, what a purpose of a mission statement could be, and then finally the leadership, as I spoke of, and the habits at home. So that's what tonight is going to look like. Leadership is just having positive influence on others. We also talk to our kids about leadership can also be a negative influence. But what we want to teach kids is how can you be a positive influence? How can you see a need somewhere and move towards that? You see a need and you want to make a change, and giving kids the power to be able to see that and recognize it. When you unleash that in kids, it's amazing what kids can do. I've been amazed with what our kids can do at our school now, how they see needs from a different level, literally from a different level. They see needs with animals. They see needs with their next door neighbors. They see needs of, we need more jump ropes. We need more things in our school. And they come up with a plan about what they can do, because kids have potential to be great leaders. You know, this is something that really drove our school, is we only get one chance to prepare our students for a future that none of us can possibly predict. We don't know what it's going to look like. Look how fast things are already moving. Just about the time we catch up our kids about where we think they're supposed to be, we keep moving the target. We keep moving what kids can potentially do. So when we look at what we want kids to be able to do, we've got to be able to predict ahead. We don't know what that's going to look like, so what things would we like kids to be able to learn? What are we going to do with that one chance that we can take them as children and move them forward and prepare them for their world? Looking at 21st century skills, this is just a whole squeezed together list of speaking to businesses, parents, site councils, children, talking about to teachers, what is it that we want kids to be able to do? What should they be able to do in order to come and work in your organization, in order to come in and participate in wherever you need them? And if you look at the list, you can see that they want them to be creative and innovative. We want them to have critical thinking and be able to problem solve. We want them to have communication skills, but they have to be able to collaborate. You can be creative, but if you can't collaborate, you have no one to share your ideas with. So we want to be able to teach those skills. They have to be flexible and adaptable with what other people have coming to them. Take initiative, self-direction. That's a big one for elementary kids, for younger kids to think about self-direction, knowing what it is that they want to be able to do. They need social skills. They need to understand that the world is a huge place and we have a huge diversity. We need to be prepared for that. The world's getting larger, or smaller, I guess. Productivity and accountability. They need to take leadership and then have responsibility for their choices along the way. So looking at all of that, that was what we came at as a school of, well, what could we do for our kids? If that's, gee, that seems pretty simple, right? There's an easy list to do. What could we do? What could we make that work for? How could we make that work? And that's where we found the book called The Leader in Me by Stephen Covey. And I have a few of these. I don't know if you signed up for the little lottery out there, but I have a few of these books to give away, along with the 7 Habits of Happy Kids. But in this book, this is the first book. They actually have a second book out now. But Muriel Summers was a principal in North Carolina who had just gone to the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People training and came back to her school. And when she got back to her school, her superintendent called and said, we're shutting down your school. There aren't enough kids here. Your test scores are super low. We need to shut you down and figure something out. And she said, oh gosh, this is such a great community. I don't want that to happen. She said, let me see if we can come up with an idea. And the superintendent said, you have 1 week and you don't have any money. So that's where she got together with her community and some site council people and said, what can we do? And that was where the idea of, could we teach kids the 7 habits of highly effective people, but do it at a student base? And so that's where they began. And so all of that you see now is really, it started at one school, and they sort of developed a lot of things, and we've been developing it along the way as a whole community. In the world right now, the Leader in Me, it's a process. It's considered a process. It's foundational skills is what we talk about, is that 7 habits are just really common sense. But it's around the world right now, again, in 1,500 schools. And of those 1,500 schools around the world, they have, I believe they're at 52 or 53 lighthouse schools. And lighthouse schools are considered schools that are model schools that are doing all of the pieces that they have some criteria that you follow. They're showing that, and other people come to their school to see what they're doing. We're the 27th lighthouse school, which we were really proud of to get that status last year. But again, it just shows that we believe strongly in what we're doing here with the kids. So, just a quick overview of what the Leader in Me is. It's based on the 7 habits of highly effective people, and it incorporates the language into all of our curriculum. We don't change the language at all. Kindergarten, our school is kindergarten through 5th grade. We don't change the language. We talk about being proactive. We talk about beginning with the end in mind. We use all the same language that they do for the 7 habits of highly effective people so that the kids can understand it. What's really interesting is that the kids have a better grasp of it lots of times than parents do, because kids are open to that understanding. So we use the language with them. And since we started using the 7 habits, what we really have noticed is that with our students and our staff, that kids and staff started to develop leadership skills, other skills that we didn't really even know people had. As a teacher, I'm a former teacher. As a teacher, I knew what my job was, excuse me, and I taught with a lot of creativity. Diane and I used to teach with a lot of creativity together. Really enjoyed doing that. But didn't really have an opportunity to do the things that I really like to do. It wasn't really offered in a school about, well, what's your favorite thing to do? Where are your strengths? Well, since we started doing this at our school, we've opened the door of, well, what are your strengths? And what we found at our school was, once we asked people, well, what do you really love to do? I was surprised to find out that we have some support staff that, if they could, they'd really love to make a mural on our wall. So on their own time on a Saturday, we had about a group of 10 people come in and paint beautiful murals up in our school. So that was one thing I didn't know. I found out that I had a first grade teacher and a fourth grade teacher that were great friends that loved gardening and started a garden at our school. Because when it was something that they love, it doesn't feel like work. That's how you sharpen the saw. That's how you spend your time enjoying it. And when you do that with kids too, it feels the same for them. Kids understand that school is their job. That's what they need to do. And we always talk to kids about our role for you is that you come to us and we know that you have things that you need to work on. That's why you come to school. But we really want to focus on what do you do well? What is your strength? And when we focus on your strength, we'll help you with the other areas, but let's focus on your strength. It really empowers kids. Imagine if that's how you looked at your own kids at home. What are your strengths? And I'm going to use your strengths. You're really good at making a schedule. And your brother, he's not really good at making a schedule. But if I put you in charge of the schedule, and I put your brother in charge of starting the lunches on time, whatever your strength is, what do you love to do? It's amazing how it doesn't become a chore and it becomes something that you have a lot of pride in and you care to take care of. Again, talking about with our teacher strengths, I didn't ask people to come in and do things. They choose to do them on their own time. They discover their own unique talents. One of the things, again, at our school that I really love is that since we started using the Leader in Me, we have student council. And so typically with student council, you tend to get the same group of kids, the ones that are probably the most outgoing. They enjoy being in front of other people. They like drama. They like to talk. They have no problem getting in front of other kids and talking. So when you take that group of kids and you assign them student council role, and they know what their jobs are, what that does is it opens up a whole world of something else for other kids. So when you say to other kids, we have a garden, who loves garden? Then those kids come and they're part of our garden. Who likes to give school tours? Well, those kids then are part of our school tours. Who's really good in art and you'd like to come help with a mural? Or you'd like to make invitations because we're inviting some guests to come see us? What we have found is every student in our school has a leadership role, no matter how small or how big that role is. We have one student in particular that I remember was late all the time, coming to school late all the time. It didn't matter. We tried everything. We tried everything positive to get him to come to school, and he wasn't motivated enough to get to school on time. And then one day the teacher really started thinking about, I've got to find what his strength is. And she realized that every time we have sunlights in our school, so we often don't need to turn on the regular lights because the sunlights show a lot. Well, she realized that he was very conscientious about if we left the screen on or if the lights were on when we didn't need them. It was very bothersome to him. So he would say, oh, Mrs. Jones, you forgot to turn the lights off, and turn the lights off. So she realized, he really cares about the lights. So she said to him, you know what, we're not going to be able to start our day until you get here because you turn the lights on. And every day he came to school, truly on time, and he would get to the front of the line because he had to be the first one in, and he would get to the door and he'd flip the lights on, and then everybody would come in, and it gave him really a purpose to want to be there. And then it was his job to turn the lights off. So at the end, when they would go somewhere, he would turn off the switch and turn off the lights, and it made him really proud. So it doesn't matter what your role is, but you take ownership, and it changes the way you feel about what you think is important to you. As a school, as a staff, now I'm just going to give you a little bit of background about our school. In order for us to start the 7 Habits of Happy Kids, the first process is to go through the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, the adult version. And when we went through that, it was really amazing how our staff got that inside-out change. You can read that quote, but what it talks about is that I'm not able really to teach it to you unless I own it first. I have to really understand it. So when we went through the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, what was so amazing was how our staff came together, how we started to recognize one another's strengths, how we started to recognize what was really important to us as a school and how much we really did all care about the same kinds of things, but maybe just in a little bit of a different way. So that inside-out change made such a difference. And when you bring that positive energy to the school, then the kids can carry that positive energy with them. So kids are very excited to come to school. Teachers are happy. We're smiling all the time. Can't walk through the hallway without somebody saying good morning to you. So the inside-out change was an important part to us. We changed our mission statement. Our mission statement was something to the effect of all children learning someday in a world of no one knew what it was. So when we sat down, talked as a staff and said, so we know what we want kids to be able to do. We know what's important to us now that we did the 7 habits. What do we want to make our mission statement look like? And after we really talked and broke it down and put all the great big lists out, we really came down to leaders of today, inspiring leaders of tomorrow. Every student's role as a leader at our school is to do something that will inspire the next group that comes through. So our 5th graders inspire our 4th graders. Our 1st graders inspire our kindergartners. And we recognize that in them. So that's very important to us, and we do that to the students as well. I apologize for the long list, but I just wanted to show you some of the benefits that we saw. And same thing, you can apply these to home if you think about this, but we, as a school now, we set goals. That's database learning. We synergize together. That's one of the habits. We synergize and do everything together now. We truly, our behavior concerns went dramatically down. And you'll see that as parents too, once you start to use the common language. Together, students learn how to walk through problems in our win-wins. There is very much a greater sense of community because parents use the same language that we do. And when they use the same language that we do, the kids, everybody has the same common understanding about what that means. We have a proactive environment. We think first before we react. Kids have an excitement for learning. We really are nurturing responsibility, that it's not up to your mom and dad, it's really up to you. It's probably the most important part is that we're developing the whole child. They are vessels that need to learn skills, they need to learn academic skills, but that's a piece of them. We need to teach them the great big world and how to get along and how to maneuver their way through the world too. And then focus on personal leadership. How can I personally contribute to what's going on in the world? 7 habits, as I said, they're just common sense. I know when we went through this as a staff, we all said, wait a second, I know that. I know I should act that way. Of course we do. All this is just a way to use common language. It's not anything brand new. This is not something that, oh my gosh, I never thought about that way. It's exactly, of course, we should be doing those things. But the difference is that it's common language. And if you use that at home too, as a common language, it's amazing how the kids understand what you mean and you understand what they mean. Common sense is not always common practice. We think that kids understand what we mean, and they don't understand what you mean because it's our common sense, but they don't understand that. The 7 habits are really about life. It's not about in this grade or at home. It's about using life skills. And then this tree, I think if you probably picked that up, you can see that the tree is there. That's used as an analogy in elementary schools. That's also used in the 7 Habits of Happy Kids book because kids can understand the tree part of it. And if you look, quick snapshot, habits 1, 2, and 3, those are the roots of the tree because we talk about your character. The person that you are is underneath the surface. That's just who you are. That's just your character and who your being is. And people don't see that because it's who you are. And once your character develops, what starts to happen is you build that trunk. And those pieces are when you start to be able to work with other people because your character and your roots are so strong that your trunk, that part of you, becomes so important that now other people can see, well, gosh, because you are proactive or you do begin with the end in mind, that's why you're able to do a win-win with me. So you can start to see that those pieces grow. And then ultimately the tree itself is about sharpening the saw, about taking care of yourself and balance. So I'm going to walk you through really quickly just what the 7 habits are because I don't want to bore you. But habit 1 is being proactive. And we talk to kids about the circle of influence and the circle of control. You can only influence so many things. And when we're upset, parents as the stoplight, the stoplight made me late and the stoplight, got in my way, or that guy cut in front of me, or the laundry wasn't working today. I don't have control over those things. Those things are going to happen anyway. What I have control over is my influence of myself. What am I going to do about that? In this habit, as the principal, I'm sure you've guessed that kids come and see me sometimes, and we talk about, so what just happened? Oh, he makes me so mad. And I always say, no one can make you mad. What happened? Well, he hit me. And how did you act? Well, I hit him back. Okay, do you think that was probably the best way for that to be? No. So we can talk that through. Or he made me so mad that I took his pencil. But we talk about, well, when you do that, you give away control. Kids understand that. You gave away your control as soon as that happened. So being proactive is saying, I'm in charge of myself. And sometimes parents will say, well, I don't want my child to be in charge of himself. That's my job. But we're not saying that they're in charge of saying, I'm going to run this house now. That's not what we mean. What we mean is I'm in charge of myself in that I choose how I respond. I choose to wake up on time. I choose to come to school on time. I choose to get my homework done. It's all about your choices. I'm responsible. I take initiative. I choose my actions, attitudes, and moods. That takes time for kids to really understand that they choose their mood. We choose our mood. It's however we come to work, however we go home at the end of the day. I don't blame others for my actions. Like I said, he made me so mad. Well, he can't make you mad. He can do something that upset you, but he didn't make you mad. I do the right thing even when no one is watching. This habit is the most important foundational piece out of all of it. Because once we get this piece so that kids understand it, that's where you start to see the biggest growth and change. And when I talk to kids, just even in the hallway, and they'll start to run or something, I'll just say, guys, are you doing the right thing? Even when no one is watching, they know that that's our little motto. It's what we say, always doing the right thing. Hard to do, easy to say, hard to do. But if we said that to our kids, are you doing the right thing? Are you taking action? Are you taking responsibility? Are you in charge of your mood? That they can understand, that I'm the one that decides that. Habit 2 is beginning with the end in mind. I plan ahead and I set my goals. I do things that make a difference. It's about that leadership piece. I do something because I care about it. I'm an important part to my classroom and I contribute to my school. Again, that's where we talk about what leadership are you bringing, what positive role are you bringing to our school. And I look for ways to be a good citizen. Important concept here is that citizenship is very important in our world. And kids need to recognize that you're part of a whole great big group of people. And so at our school, we offer lots of opportunities for kids to do community service, to help out. One of the things at our garden is that after we harvest our garden, the students take any fruits and vegetables that we have and they bring them to the Kyrene Family Resource Center. So families that are in need, every so often will get fresh fruits and vegetables from our garden, and that makes kids feel really happy that they're contributing. Begin with the end in mind. Know what you want to be able to do. This is the piece about data passports. I kind of moved it around a little bit, but we have data passports at our school. And what that means is that every child from kindergarten through 5th grade has a binder, and in the binder, they have data in there. So if we started with kindergarten, it starts with, teachers can choose, but it starts with sight words. It starts with number recognition. It starts with letter recognition. And when you first start in kindergarten, the teachers do that one-on-one. What letters do you know? What sight words do you know? And then they'll help the kids chart that. So the kids have a graph, maybe don't understand it, but they have a graph and say, I know 8 sight words. Then the next step after that is then they talk to the kids and say, well, you know 8 sight words. You know, we're going to do this again in 2 weeks. How many sight words do you think you'll know? 1,000. Okay, well, 1,000's a big number. Do you think we could come up with a number that maybe we want to get to 1,000? So it starts in kindergarten, and then they say 25. Okay, 25. What are you going to do to try to learn 25 words? Well, I'm going to practice at home. I'm going to have my mom help me with some flashcards. I'm going to sit with my friend at school, and we're going to go over through the words. It works because they want to hit 25. So when you say, don't forget, Friday, we're going to look at your sight words again, they'll practice because it's meaningful to them. They want to get their goal. When we say you have to know 25 sight words by Friday, you have to, and get your homework done, and don't forget, it's a little bit different. But when I say I want 25, then I'm motivated to do that. So after we set goals with the kids, then ultimately we do a check-in with them, and once they've met their goal, we do a celebration. And a celebration doesn't mean that we have a popcorn party. It doesn't mean that anything. It doesn't mean anything. It just means the celebration is, I cannot believe that you said you were going to get 25, you got 29. You went above and beyond. You should go over and tell Mrs. Jones next door that you got 4 more than you thought. Yay, congratulations. But celebration is a big part about setting goals. And if you don't meet your goal, that's okay too. We don't change our goal. We just step back and say, well, let's change our action steps then. Is there something that wasn't going quite right? Well, I didn't study like I said I was going to. Okay, let's go back and look at your action steps again. But we don't change our goal. We never lower a goal. We try to keep it realistic, but we help kids move forward. And all the way through 5th grade, they get much more sophisticated as they get through 5th grade. So in kindergarten, that's low level, very teacher driven, but about the time kids get into 3rd grade, they're driven by themselves. They know what they want to do. They understand that the reason I want to increase my fluency is because it will make me a better reader. And when I become a better reader, then I'm going to be able to understand my reading test better, or I'm going to be able to comprehend things even more. So they start to put those together, and then the data passports matter to them. Setting goals at home can be the same way. Put them in charge of what do you want to be able to do. At our school, we have what are called WIGs. WIGs stand for Wildly Important Goals. Instead of PIGs, which are Pretty Important Goals, we have WIGs. So our Wildly Important Goals are an academic and a personal goal. And so they start with an academic goal of, I would like to be able to read 18 chapter books by the end of this quarter. So each quarter we check in with them. That's one great big goal that's over an entire quarter. Then they also set a personal goal. I'm going to be able to tie my shoes by the time Mrs. DiCosmo comes back. All right, let's check it out. Then we come back in the quarter and we check with both of those goals. How's that going? Have you met your wildly important goal? So that's an extra goal that they set above and beyond. And that's something you could do as parents, is set an above and beyond goal. What's something we really want to be able to do? So that was habit 2. Habit 3 is put first things first. So putting first things first is really your action steps. So I know what I want to be able to do, but now I need to look at, so how do I decide in what order I'm going to be able to do those? So I spend my time on things that are most important. This is a great one, put first things first. This is a great one for homework. We use this with kids all the time. Work first, then play. Work first, then play. Works great. Kids know that their job is to go home and get their homework done first. That way, they're setting their priorities. They make plans for themselves, they set their priorities, and then they follow through on those priorities because they know what they want to be able to do. Habit 4 is think win-win. This is a great one that we use a lot out on the playground a lot of times. Two kids want to play with the same ball. Only one group of kids wants to play basketball and one group of kids maybe wants to play kickball. And it was before that they would scuffle over, or the strongest or the kid who grabbed the ball and ran the fastest usually ended up with it. But instead now we have where we set it up to go find a win-win. Kids are amazing at finding win-wins without you getting involved. I don't know, you're going to have to figure that one out. And they'll come back and say, we have 20 minutes outside, they're going to play kickball for 10 minutes, and then I'm going to play basketball with my friends for 10. Or today they're going to take the kickball for the 20 minutes, and tomorrow we're going to take the basketball. So kids can come up with that. I was talking to our librarian, and she said that it works great in the library too, because kids will inevitably go to the same book. And she said they'll come up to me with both hands on one book. They'll both come up. And she'll say, you know what, I don't really know, you're going to have to figure that one out. And she said, I've never had to fix it. They always come back with a plan. They figure it out. So kids understand the win-win concept. It's important to note that competition is different than a win-win. A win-win is having an attitude of, in order for me to get what I want, you don't have to go without. How about if I get something that I want and you get something that you want? We have this mutually beneficial idea about how this is going to work for both of us. Competition is different. Competition is, we set out to have a winner and a loser, but it's in a way that's intended to be a sports-based. It's intended to be that way. That's the way the team piece was set up. But we don't want competition with kids in classrooms. We don't want them. We want them to have a win-win so that they can work together. going back to those 21st century skills, that they have an idea of how to work together and cooperate and not withhold their great ideas because they're afraid to share them, but instead understand that if I work with this creative idea and you work with a creative idea, what can we come up with that might work? So win-win, like I said again, it's different than competition, okay? But win-win is really great with kids. They understand it. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. Probably the most challenging for everybody is seeking first to understand. Even as adults, we use this in IEP meetings, parent meetings, seeking first to understand. That old thing you probably learned when you were taking counseling or learning about how I paraphrase back what it is that you're trying to say to me. I'm not going to assume that I know what you're saying to me. Slowing down and let me see if I can understand what you want from me. Again, working with kids, I have brought kids together that are really having difficulties getting along. 5th grade girls sometimes have difficulty together. But when you slow them both down, they both want the same thing, but they just aren't listening to one another. So slow it down, and really I listen to other people's ideas. I don't make fun of their ideas. I understand how they're feeling. It's that empathy part. It's understanding that empathy is important to have too, and compassion for one another. I try to see things from their paradigm. That's a really important one. We talk to kids all the time about a paradigm, how when you come into an argument or a disagreement, if you think about the reason there's an argument or disagreement is because my perspective is my perspective based on where I'm standing, based on the information that came to me. So teaching that to kids that, well, you are just as right as your brother because he's coming at it from who he is, from his perspective, from what he's gathering, from what he's made of. When you realize that those different paradigms, those different ideas are both correct, that's where we get stuck, is because I try to convince you to do it my way because my paradigm is right. Instead of, how about if I try to explain what my paradigm is? And then you explain what yours is. We have different ideas or perceptions of how we got there. So teaching that to kids is again, something that will help them through their lifetime. I listen with my eyes, my ears, and my heart. We talk about that all the time with kids. Listen without interrupting, very difficult to do. Practice that one at home. Listen without interrupting, really hard to do. Because we want to get our point across so quickly that we just want to be able to say, here, let me just tell you what I meant, and be done with it, instead of really listening to it. And then I'm confident in voicing my ideas. Once you've gained trust with your kids, that you're saying to them, I understand what you're saying, I understand where you're coming from, then they will start to they'll voice their opinion. And not in a way that's a stubborn, no, I want my way, but in a way that is more of them explaining to you why they want something the way they want it. Instead of it stomping off and being angry, they're explaining to you why it matters so much to them. And it may still be something that you won't agree with, but you're able to say, I understand where you're coming from. Let me explain why we can't do this way. Let me explain. Let's see if we can come to a win-win. And when they believe that you want to come to a win-win, they're going to be more willing to hear you and to listen to you as well. Synergize. Together is better. Down the green there, together is better. Really synergizing is, it's that part about being able to work together and understanding that one idea plus one idea does not always have to equal two. One idea plus one idea just means that we took our two ideas and tried to combine them. Doesn't really get us very far. Sometimes people try to take ideas and have one idea plus one idea, and you know what we're going to do is we're just going to negotiate it out, and we end up with 1.5 instead of even 2. Because we took some of yours off and took some of mine off, and let's fine. Sometimes 1 plus 1 is 0 because we're both going to walk away because I don't even want to listen to your idea. But when you synergize, you realize that 1 plus 1 could equal 3 or 10 or 1,000. Because once you start that train rolling of my idea and your idea, which wait, that makes me think of could we do this and could we do this? And before you know it, you've come up with an even better alternative than either of you could have thought up on your own. I do that all the time with teachers. My one idea is not the best idea. It might be a place to start, but as you listen to other people's ideas and what we could do with it. It's just amazing how much more you can come up with. And kids, again, are masters at this because they listen with open hearts. They listen to try to come up with a better idea. We have to let loose of that. We have to just allow them to be able to take something and make it more than it really could have been. So synergizing is knowing that our ideas together are a better idea than just my idea alone. And then finally, sharpen the saw. Sharpen the saw is just balancing body, mind, heart, and soul, recognizing that you're a whole person. Really, as parents, sometimes we get off balance with our kids on this one, and sometimes we get super focused on just making sure that we're getting our schoolwork done, and sometimes kids get overwhelmed, and then there are behaviors that start to happen, or things are happening at the house we can't figure out why, but it's because if you take a look, there's some place that's off balance. Sometimes the heart piece gets off balance because we're hyper-focused on maybe the sports that need to be done or the academics that need to be done, and we forget about that family piece that needs to be done, or the time with mom or the time with dad or the time with my friends. And when you have that balance, you're a whole person. And the balance then allows you to be that much more open to being able to get my schoolwork done because I feel balanced. And again, if I set my priorities and I follow through with my priorities, think of how all these pieces can come together. And I think this is really important to remind kids about sharpening the saw. We talk to kids all the time about balance feels best. When you start to feel a little bit like you're teetering off to one side, it's time to slow down. And as parents, you're models of that. Every day when they see, if you're rushing, then that's what they see as, that's the balance in our life, is a rush. But if you say, time out, we're gonna slow down today, no friends today, because we're just gonna get together as a family. It shows kids that your balance, it's important to me too. Don't want you to feel one way or the other, okay? That's an overview of the 7 habits. You can see how that would take 24 hours to really in-depth teach that, about what that really means so that you can model it. But it doesn't mean you can't start using it at home, just by knowing what those 7 habits mean. And really, so now connecting the learning at home, it's first, learn the vocabulary. Use the vocabulary and use it together all the time. Say proactive. Use the words proactive. Don't try to change it. Talk about win-win. Use the words win-win. It feels really unnatural when you first start using it. I can remember even using it with my kids, like, oh geez, here we go again. Mom's saying win-win. But it starts to become your language. And when you say win-win, if I asked you right now, if I said to you, can we come up with a win-win, you don't have to try to figure out what I'm talking about. You know what I mean. Sometimes we're vague when we talk about respect. What is respect? I don't know. My respect looks different than your respect. If we talk about win-win, it's already a common vocabulary. So learn the vocabulary and understand what they mean. Internalize the habits. Use them yourself. Boy, kids can really see through when we're not using them and we expect them to. You know, so we're in the car, we're beeping our horn, we're honking, and then we say to our kids, did you pack your backpack? No, Mom, I thought you were going to pack my backpack. You need to be proactive. Be in charge of yourself. Oh, guess I wasn't doing my part in the car too. Kids will see that. Kids see how you model it, and then that's what they'll take with them. So you internalize them, and then start living the habits. Once you learn the vocabulary, internalize them, start to understand them, then you start to live them. They do start to become very natural. That's when you can teach the habits. That's when you're doing the modeling to your kids, really showing them what it looks like. I also recommend teaching the habits, once the kids get it, have them teach it to their friends, because there's nothing more empowering than teaching it. That's when you know it, is when you're able to teach it. Set and keep goals. Again, big parent modeling piece right here. Set and keep goals. If you say we're going to do this on a certain day, then make sure that you do it. If you can't do it, just explaining why. Why we said we were going to do this, but we aren't able to, and let me explain why. Set and keep goals. Great modeling for kids to see again. And then ultimately, you'll see that those leadership things that kids already have, and those strengths that maybe we don't even recognize in our kids will start to emerge. Once they realize that they can be in control of themselves, not in charge of what they get to do, but in control of themselves, that's when their leadership shows. That's when they realize, you know, I really do love art. I have time now because I've got my academics done and I've got the things done that I need to take care of. That opens the door to, gosh, I have a little extra time to really find something I love. Mission statements, really, that's just, it's a framework to define what's important to you. Going back to our mission statement, leaders of today, inspiring leaders of tomorrow. Everything that we do, any program, any time we bring in an assembly, anything that we do, we always go back to, does this add to leaders of today, inspiring leaders of tomorrow? And if it does match, then we move forward on it. As families, setting a mission statement about what's important to you will always bring you back to that. What's important to us? There are websites that you can go on and they sort of walk you through that process of how to write a mission statement, but I would say that's one of the most important things that you can do is always go back to, why are we a family? What brings us together as a family? So here I have a couple of examples. This is a family one, to love each other, to help each other, to believe in each other. That's their family mission statement. Sat down together and came up with this. So that could be a family mission statement for you. Here's one. This one's, I just put a couple in to throw it in. This one says, deliver exceptional Asian dining experience by building an organization where people are inspired to better their lives. Any idea what organization this might be? Anybody? I think it's actually on your paper. Panda Express. So everything that they do, they use the 7 habits in their organization too. And then this one, sorry about the font, to inspire and nurture the human spirit, one person, one cup, and one neighborhood at a time. Yeah, Starbucks, I had to put that one up. So anyway, again, going back, your mission statement is just what's important to us and having it there and always going back to that. What matters to us, okay? How do you set a mission statement? What are our highest priority goals? Your priority goals are different than your neighbor's goals, are different than your brothers and sisters' family's goals. What is important to us as a family? I bet you'd be surprised if you sat down with your kids and asked them, what's the most important thing to me? What's the most important thing to us as a family? I bet you'd be surprised what they come up with. They'd probably say, and I'm making this up, but sports. When you would say, oh my gosh, no. It's about us being loving and caring about each other, but maybe they don't understand that or know that. So starting with what are our highest priorities, what unique talents and gifts to each of them does everyone contribute? And are you using those unique talents and gifts to better your family? Okay, looking at each person through a different lens. Not that one person runs a little bit slow and another person's not quite as organized. Different lens. What are your talents? What can you bring to the family? What makes us happy? What makes us feel comfortable when we're home together? What's important when we're home feeling good together? And what kind of home do we want to invite friends to? So if you could ask your kids those questions, you could develop a mission statement so that they know solidly what's important to you and what's important as a family. Taking a look at leadership ideas at home that you could just quickly establish right from the start. Again, it's going to sound a little, it's not going to sound authentic at the beginning when you call things leadership roles because you just want to say you're the table setter. But if you say to your children, you know what, you're so good at remembering where the spoons and forks go, I would really like you to be the leader in table setting. Changes it. You're a leader in table setting. And you know what, I'd like you to do this for a week, and then after you do it, do you think you could teach your sister how to do it? She really could learn how to do that, but you're so good at it. So then you change that. The duster. Your 2 and 3-year-olds, you're a leader in dusting. You know what? You're able to see those spots down below that I can't even see. So you're going to be the leader. Someone could be the person that writes the dinner menu. Because every week when you try to put the dinner menu together, you always have someone who sits down and says, ugh, I don't want to eat this. Yes?
We have a floor plan of our home, and we laid it out, and we had everybody play the station. And we color coordinated it. And so then when the house is a mess, I say, go to your station. My little 5-year-old is a booger, and he won't help at all, but the family room hardly ever gets dirty, and the other rooms are crazy. But so we gave him the easy one, and he'll straighten the pillows, and he'll put the shoes on the stairs, and he's like, Mom, my station is done. He's so proud.
That's exactly. You're right. That's exactly what it is. It's his spot. It's what he's in charge of. That's a great example. That's perfect. Stations. I love that. Yeah, so any way that you can find to give kids that power to say that that's what you're responsible for. Again, I can't see things very well. Basically, strengths-based qualities. This is, what are you good at? What do you love? What do you want to contribute to? Put it in writing, not just saying to someone, you know what, yeah, you're great at cleaning the family room, but putting it together, having that floor plan, coming up with an idea, and then checking in. Super important that you're checking in. Otherwise, it just seems like one of those things that they know that you're not going to look anyway. But if you check in so that you can remind them that it really does matter to us. Oh my gosh, you forgot to clean the bathroom, and that really matters to us because I know you're so good at that I really need you to get in there and get that taken care of. That feels so different to them than it being a chore. Finding what they can do, again, checking in with them. Providing them just with the feedback of saying, way to go, you did a nice job. You also can do, and I don't know how some parents, you give, like kids might earn an allowance or something. That's another great way to use of, beginning with the end in mind about what would you like to have? Well, I really want a scooter. It's a great idea. How much does a scooter cost? I have no idea, so I'm going to say $25. I'm sure it's way more than that. But it's $25. Well, okay. So that's what you want. Let's come up with a plan. What's your plan? What's that going to look like? How long is that going to take you? And then you check in on a week. How'd you do with your goals? Did you get as far as you wanted to? Because I know that scooter's waiting for you. I know that's really what you want to get. But remember, it has to be what they want. It has to be something that they're looking towards that they would really like to have. So for instance, this one's here is, each morning we'll all know what to do and be ready on time. So this is a goal. This is a goal that you set as a family. So thinking about being proactive, that's where it's initiative and responsibility. So let's talk about what do we need for tomorrow. Let's write a list. Let's pack your lunch. That's making sure that we're going to be ready for this goal tomorrow. Okay? Begin with the end in mind. This is visualizing. This is planning. Remember, our goal is we want to be ready on time. Let's plan this. What does it look like? Let's talk about, what does a smooth morning look like? Does it look like all of us running out without our shoes and no socks? We forget our lunches? What would it look like? So we're going to visualize what that morning could look like. Make a schedule and keep it. Setting that part. We're going to set a schedule together. We get up at 6:30. Everybody's agreeing, right? We're all getting up at 6:30. And then put first things first. That's staying focused on the task at hand. Remember, guys, our goal is we want to get out with everybody knowing what we're going to do. That's our goal. So we want to put first things first. Help kids avoid distractions. Oh, no TV. Remember, we talked about this. We're not going to have the TV on. Remember, we talked about that we're not going to have your toys out right now. That's what you get when you come home. So you're helping kids avoid those distractions. Goes back to that work first, then play. Let's reach our goal. If you get all your stuff done early in the morning, then of course you can play with your toys. But this is our goal first. Ultimately, kind of wrapping it up here, the key to all of this really is those life skills. About, again, those 21st century skills about preparing our kids. We want them we're going to learn and live and teach the habits, the principles of just being able to take care of myself, knowing that there's purpose behind what I'm doing, making meaning for my own self about why I come to school. If you ask kids why they're at school, it's because their mom and dad make them. If you change that and tell them you're coming to school because what do you want to be when you grow up? We do that at our school too. We have those college days. I'm sure we've all had college days, but we set a purpose to it. Well, yeah, you want to be a fireman. Yeah, you want to be a chemist, but how are you going to get there? We had a first grader who, she wanted to be a chemist, and she was out on the playground, and one of our teachers was talking to her, and she said, so what do you want to be? And she said, oh, I'm going to be a chemist. And she said, and I've already written some goals. And the teacher said, oh, well, what kind of goals are you writing? She goes, well, first one is I've got to learn how to read. So yay, you got step one. She's going to be a chemist, but she knows I got to learn how to read. So, and then problem solving skills. Again, learning how to work through problems and working together. This is a picture of me kind of there at our school. Characters doing the right thing when no one is looking. We have quotes up all over our wall for inspiration all the time. Dr. Covey, this whole piece of the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People all goes back to leadership as communicating a person's worth and potential so clearly that they're inspired to see it in themselves. I'm going to find something good about you so clearly. I'm going to believe it. I'm going to help you find it. We're going to foster it so much so that you believe it. And you believe it and you carry it with you, and you know that you can use that in great leadership kinds of ways. That's my presentation. I hope that we're all going to be able to create greatness in our kids, no matter what that looks like, no matter what strengths they bring and what talents they have, potentially showing their leadership. So I am here to answer any questions. If you want to grab that bucket too, I can pull out the winners' names. Any questions at all? Yes?
I had a question when you were talking about the strength-based qualities, and you were saying having them set goals, but they need to be goals that they want to set.
Yes.
How do you, because I have to say, if I ask my 11-year-old what goals he wants to set, it would be to be the best video gamer ever, and not necessarily the best pianist ever. How do you make sure how do you direct their goals to something, you do need to practice your piano 30 minutes a day and not do video games?
That's great. Well, there's two ways, because I think, well, first, we talk to kids about being the best. That's hard to say them to be the best because it's not actionable to get there. So first we say, well, what is it that you want to be able to do? And the video game part of it, you could be really good at playing video games, but that's just one piece of you. The other piece is that we really want you to practice your piano. So have him set what the goal looks like for the piano. He may not be internalizing piano just yet, because that's something maybe that you want. So you set that goal as that's a part of the work first, then play. So it may not be that he'll set that goal yet, but he'll get there. So I think with video games, it's not about saying you can't choose that. It's instead saying, well, what is it you want to get good at? I want to be able to get to level 4 on Mario. That's fine. That can be a goal, but that's just a small goal. But your other goal is, how many piano books do you think we can get through? What song do you think you could be able to play by the end of next quarter? So you can kind of gear them that way. Because it can't be just open. Again, thinking about where they are developmentally. We steer them and guide them in the direction that we want them to. I always think about puppies and dogs. Everybody always wants the biggest puppy and the biggest dog, but that's not what you want to bring home. So we gear them towards what works best for us. So, but yeah, it's okay for him to have that goal, but he'll find himself reaching those goals so quickly that he'll want to set something else too.
Just to chime in there too, I think one of the reasons why kids inherently love video games is because they're very goal-oriented.
Yes.
And so they set that, I want to get to level 4, and there's that positive reinforcement, I got to level 4.
Yeah.
And so, I know I talk to teachers a lot about, can you gamify something that we call gamify. Can you gamify something you're doing in the classroom so that there's a level to get to, there's a goal to do, because that's intrinsic for all of us to know that we're moving towards something. And so I think that's why kids like video games.
Yeah.
That it tells them, you did it, and here's the next goal. So we just need to do that more in other aspects of their life, I think.
It's true. And I think even again, like with the piano, is sometimes, and I don't mean to make your example, but just sometimes it feels like it's going to be the never-ending piano thing, because I don't know what that means. You're never going to let me quit playing the piano. Right? I mean, that's what they think. So if instead you said, once you get through this book, or once you've taken this many lessons, or you've done something, we're going to celebrate it. What would you like to do? You want, Dad and I will sit down and play the video game with you, or something that can bring the two together. But you got to know that there's an end in sight, because otherwise it feels like it's just going to keep going. So I think that might be a way to work it too. Okay? Other questions? All right.
The other thing I just want to add is I always have to add my little twist about gifted kids. But one of the things that Darcy and I had talked about is a lot of times when academics are not a problem for kids, and your students probably do really well academically, they're gifted. We want to know, what's next? What are you going to do with that? It's great that you are reading and writing and doing math and science and social studies well, but there's a whole big world out there.
Yeah.
And so we want to make sure that they have those skills, those life skills that Darcy's talking about, to do something with that, math, science, and whatever. So
Thank you for making that point.